Even
How are you doing?
yeah, all good. How about you?
It's Monday again.
Hmm.
I uh,
Yep.
I woke up very early local time to catch some FOSDEM talk live streams over the weekend, so I'm very tired right now.
Yeah. I think didn't get anything. Yeah, a live stream from Fosdem so far. Was it good?
Yeah. Uh,
Cool. I'll catch up.
yeah. Mike had some demo troubles. His laptop just wouldn't connect to the HDMI in the room for some reason, so he had to just kind of talk to everything. But there were some really good talks. Couple mentions of GUAC in a few different talks, so that was nice to hear.
Oh, great.
Hello,
Hello.
how's it going?
Hmm, Doing pretty well. How are you?
I had to miss FOSDEM, unfortunately. Anyway, you go, or
I watched some of the talks from my office at 5 in the morning, but I think everyone who attended in person is on the way back today.
right? Yeah, we'd be flying back if I had gone. Bye.
Some people are at FOSDEM, so is Brendan joining Leah? Do you know?
I don't know. 1 second. Yeah, on the internal one, on the internal copy of this, both Marco and Brandon said they'll join, but
Okay.
might be just the default accept.
I think Marco is at FOSDEM, isn't he? So I doubt he will join, unless he's back. I don't know. There he is. Okay.
Hello.
Uh, 1 second, I'm gonna try and dial in with this thing. I think that's all we have for today, right? I think most of the folks are tried now.
Mhm.
Um, should we get started?
Yep.
All right. So usual, this meeting is being recorded. This is the GUAC maintainers call. It will be put online. Participation in this meeting is in accordance with the LF and Openness Code of Conduct and antitrust policies. It looks like all familiar faces. We have one topic here, and I know one of the main topics we discussed last week was to talk about the GUAC 2.0 and the schema stuff. So I think let's walk through the small topics and then we'll jump right into that. I think Ben, this is your topic with the Minder team.
Yep. So if you're not aware, there's an OpenSSF working group that's creating what we're calling the open source project security baseline. It's basically a 3-tier set of criteria that projects should follow, sort of driven a lot by the CRA and giving Linux Foundation projects, but also projects more broadly, a sort of standardized set of security practices that they can meet at increasingly broad levels. So I'm one of the co-maintainers on that project, and we are getting ready to roll out a pilot of the first sort of pre-release of the standard. The Minder team, which Stacklock recently donated Minder to the OpenSSF in the last few months, I think. But they're looking at sort of using that to help. That helps automate some of the both like the evaluation against the baseline, but can also help enforce consistent ACLs and things like that across the repos, which is, I know it's something we had talked about in general. Just we have several repos in the GUACSec org, and they're not always configured consistently because they're sort of managed one off. So the community manager for Minder reached out to Mike, who sent her on to me, just to see, would we be willing to, let them sort of help us out with getting Minder set up in the GUACSec org to help evaluate those, the baseline, as we kind of use GUAC as a pilot project for, does the baseline make sense and does it work well? They said they'd be willing to, obviously help provide some of the configuration and all of that, and like kind of work with us cooperatively to make sure everything works. I thought it might also be a good opportunity, as we learn a little more about Minder, potentially there's an opportunity where, GUAC could ingest data from Minder about certain things, particularly associated with like the has source at nodes. Feels like a lot of the information that Minder would have could be useful there. But I told her I didn't want to unilaterally say yes. I wanted to talk to maintainers first about it, and make sure everyone was on board with that. Santiago, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I tried to make a list of the things that. So there's a couple of things that are related to this Minder thing, right? The first one is just to run it on our repos. The second one is to ingest their data, or like effectively work with their tools so that they can produce sort of like GUAC accessible data. Is that roughly the case? Are there?
Yeah.
Are there more, or is there just the two ones that are?
Those are sort of the two parts that come out to me, and in roughly that order, right? So like, the first step is just using it as a tool for evaluating, GUAC against the baseline standards, and then potentially helping us with like the repo configuration management. And then again, like after we have some of that experience working with it, we can see like, are there places where it would be worth having some sort of interface where GUAC could collect data from Minder and enrich the graph with that somehow. There may not be, but it seems like there's at least the possibility of that.
Okay. Do you, and this is just for my curiosity, do you know if there's an overlap between the OpenSSF best practices on the security baseline, or like what is the relationship between the two?
That is not entirely clear. I think well, that's one of the things I want to work on with the baseline team is, I joined the project a little later than a lot of people. And so there's a lot of sort of like, don't we already have this kind of things that I want to explain,
Sure.
partly for my benefit, partly because people that will be asking. I think the intent, as I understand it, is to, the best practices are sort of like guidelines, and this is more of a like a standard where you have to meet all of these at a certain level to say that you're compliant with the OpenSSF baseline.
Okay. Yeah, this was just I was curious about. I don't know how it changes any of the calculations. Thank you.
Parth, I think you were next.
Yeah, I think how is it different from like All Stars then also? Is there a big difference between this and All Stars? Because isn't All Stars also doing configure or repo configuration and security and stuff like that?
I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah. Plus on that, I will. Now I'm confused. There's three things.
Yeah, because All Stars is also being used by a lot, and OpenSSF also promotes that. So it's like, what's the difference? And should we like I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a good question to ask, and yeah, it might just be that there is a lot of overlap because the OpenSSF isn't like trying to focus on one particular thing. It's like, hey, we've got a couple different semi-adjacent tools that are doing all this thing, and I can definitely see if we could get somebody to come to next week's meeting to answer some more of the Minder specific questions. Brandon?
Yeah, I think. Wait.
It works now.
Okay.
Now you have to mute the laptop.
Okay. Sorry. My brain was a bit slow there. Okay, hold on one second. Okay. I think it'd be interesting if the angle here was right, in the sense of the idea of doing this evaluations and saying that this thing meets a particular best practice, rather than just like a bot kind of trying to make it reach those practices. But maybe maybe Minder would be interested in doing something like, oh, if it meets certain requirements, then it will create an attestation to say that this particular repo met a requirement, and that would be something that we could then consume.
Okay.
But yeah.
So what I'm hearing is nobody is terribly opposed, but maybe it'd be good to have somebody from the Minder team just come to maybe next week's meeting and just kind of answer some more of the general questions and talk through how we would actually do it. Okay. I'll talk to Stacy and see if we can get someone to attend.
By the way, thanks whoever's taking good notes. Whoever's doing that.
It's me. I don't know which anonymous animal I am, though. I'm curious.
It's skunk.
Duck? Okay.
All right. Shall we move on to any other topics? If not, we move on to 2.0. Okay. So I think 2.0 discussion, Dejan, you said you had some thoughts to go through. You wanna drive that?
Yeah. If you have time, I can show a couple of things. So I'm not sure. So we did one bit of demo with Trustify. We talked a little bit about basic architecture. I showed the UI and a couple of basic features. Do we need to go to any of that again, or just yeah? So before we go to database schema, today I spent some time thinking about how I mean, where to start and how we might gonna put things. And I went back to this Brandon's slide, I think, right? The diagram where things are. And in my mind, I started thinking one thing for 2.0, even if it's like for us, if it's based on Trustify, we would like to have all the existing tools of in GUAC community working properly as they work now, right? So all the collectors and certifiers and things like that. I mean, I showed the UI and our reporters and all that infrastructure. That's good, right? But we can have both, right? So people that are already using GUAC can move. So I was thinking that we can do where we can start is maybe try to do a little POC to try to see if we can fit Trustify basically as a GUAC assembler component in that layer. Does that make sense?
I think maybe could you show us the Trustify schema maybe? I'll go into more details of that. Yeah.
So the schema, I will talk about database schema, right? Do you think about it? Yeah, sure. Let me just share the right screen.
So would the ingester still be used? I guess a parsing mechanism would still be the same? It wouldn't be, right? Because you have to change all the parsers around then too.
Yeah, but that's what
I guess for
I'm
2.0 we have to do anyways. But yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking what Jason says, this work on replacing the GraphQL, at least for ingestion and for ontology, we can work on that and we can figure out how to fit that into the existing data model of Trustify, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is that we would still have the ontology, except that the ontology would then be consumed by Trustify to map it to database.
I'm just thinking. So I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Because I think, yeah. Do we want to do that as a community for GUAC 2.0 to keep the existing CLI tools from the gesture side usable for folks? Or
I don't think that's
yeah, it's not a requirement. It's not a hard requirement.
Okay.
As long as the data, like as long as you provide some kind of migration step, right? The CLI tools are more like, yeah, you can use this to do some of the stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's more about the API piece. I think that's more valuable. Like CLI is more just like, okay, here's how you can use the API to do some of these things.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe it helps if we go through what the Trustify part looks like, and then I think we have a clearer idea.
Sure. On the topic of migration, we also, like, for our internal stuff, was thinking that, like, we don't do any direct database migrations and things like that, for a couple of reasons. But basically, what we would suggest to people is to, like, reingest the documents. It seems
which is
like
fine.
least problematic approach. I mean, the original documents are source of truth in the end, right? So the different database, different system, and I don't think spending too much, resources into trying to do any specific database migration would be good.
Mhm.
So okay, let me.
I just had one comment real quick on that. I agree that just re-import your SBOMs is a good approach, but I think it would be good if we had an easy way to, if somebody, for some reason doesn't have the original document lying around, to, extract that from GUAC, because I believe we do store essentially we could basically reproduce the SBOM file from what we have in the graph, right? So just having a quick way to, like, just a query or whatever that just dumps them out. That way, if people need to, if they've deleted the old files or something for some reason.
Well, the blob store should collect all that, right? We do keep original documents.
Yeah.
In GUAC.
Yeah. So just
But if you're
having
using it like it's supposed to be, then the original documents still exist, or copies of them still exist in the blob store. So you shouldn't have to. So I think that would be more of a, maybe a question to the community. It's like, is that something that's required, or do people, if you're using GUAC the way that it's intended, version 1.0, you will have the blob store that's keeping all this data for you. So you should just be able to reingest.
I don't know that it's well documented that how we think people should be using it either. So that might be something we want to just make sure is well communicated, especially once we get to 1.0.
Yeah, maybe that kind of importer from the GUAC S3 bucket or blob store is one of the options for people to migrate to 2.0, right? Santiago, you have a question?
Yeah, I feel I'm missing something in the middle. Like, at the very high level, I understand supporting Trustify use cases, all of that. I think we have discussed it earlier. That's all good. Here, we're changing the ontology, which feels like a very low level. Can you help me bridge, like, the middle, as in what is it that's really changing? Just how it's stored on the database, and what is the delta? Like, because to me it feels like supporting a use case from the database means that there must be, like, a middleware that needs something from the database that we don't have.
So I think I just want to frame the conversation a little bit, right? I think this is a little bit more of let's see, like, what are some of the designs that Trustify has done, and why they've done it to meet certain use cases. For example, we don't handle CPEs today, right? And I think we're not. I don't think, and teacher, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we're proposing, like, this is the new ontology or anything. I think this is a chance for us, given we have a fresh slate, to kind of, like, reevaluate certain parts of our ontology and change it a little bit. And, like, just by looking at the tables, right, I think this, like, 60 to 80% looks like the ontology, right, with minor tweaks here and there and representation. So I think in my mind, at least for now, I see this as I think this is more like a brainstorming understanding, where are places that, if we were given the chance to, like, redesign the ontology, which, given that we want to do this 2.0, we are given a chance. Like, would we want to change anything? Yeah.
Okay, so it's more of a, let's figure out that delta that I was asking about rather than, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point. So yeah, figure out the delta. Yeah, that's. But I agree completely with Brandon. I mean, there's only so much ways you can represent this problem in the database. I don't think there's nothing too much revolutionary here. Just people wanted to start with a clean slate and design things to fit our problem domain, and now we try to figure out how we can support that in GUAC natively, make it GUAC 2.0 and continue developing in the community. So let's start. So let's start from the SBOMs, right? That's the easiest things. I ran a couple of queries. I tried to create a diagram, but that was too messy. So I will walk you through the database if that's okay with everybody. And I mean, we don't have to figure out everything today. We can do a session within 20 minutes, how much we have time, and then figure out how to continue that next week if needed. Right. So for a single SBOM, we start with a single table with a typical metadata. I think that's all usual, and then each of these SBOMs will have a bunch of nodes, right? These will represent basically both CycloneDX and SPDX, their components and packages in broad sense, with their references and things like that, right? So we are still not identifying those nodes by anything, and that's what's coming in the next steps. So each of these nodes in SBOM can have multiple different identifiers, either being pure or CP or hash or whatever comes tomorrow, right? And the package.
I have a quick question. Is a node ID unique throughout the
Yes,
entire database? Okay.
yes, I think node ID is so SBOM ID is generated. It's UUID. I think node ID is actually the ID used in the document.
Okay, so the node ID is not really a graph ID, right? Because SPDX document, XPDX ref document will appear for every single SBOM. So this is kind of like the node ID is a subgraph of the SBOM ID in this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a node within the SBOM. Yeah. So then this node actually represents a package with a version, and this package with the version can now further be identified with a Perl or a CP in this case. So one of the I would say interesting design choices here is that we designed are representing Perl with three different tables, basically, allowing us to go through the Perls basically granularly. So first you have a base Perl, which will basically give you just the type name and the namespace, right? Then the version Perl will add a version on top of that base Perl, and in the end the qualified Perl with we'll add all qualifiers. Why is that? Is because later on, basically, we were able to more easily support version ranges on Perls, saying, you know, this, for example, advisory affects this base Perl, and within this version range, right? But we'll come to that. So I don't know how to better prepare for this kind of walkthrough to the database. So if I'm confusing, please stop me and and get me one step back. So but basically the SBOM will for the SBOM we will SBOM package will be identified with a full qualified Perl, right? So we know those are part of the SBOM.
So
I have a quick question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, my question was, so is this describing the top level component or package that the SBOM is describing, or is it something else?
No, these are all the packages in the SBOM. Yeah, and the top level is just another package.
So if I wanted to get all the nodes, so that means all the packages or right components of the SBOM, then I would just search by SBOM ID only, right? Okay.
Yeah. There's more to it, yeah, these are all you know how the SBOM is are. Yeah, maybe we can jump to that next. So these are just a list of all the components that are found in the SBOM file, right? But those components there have multiple relationships, and
Okay, I think Santiago has a question, and I have a quick question about this as well. Santiago, you know, but
Sure. So on that Perl sort of bit, we actually were thinking of doing something similar, but with a little bit more high granularity, as in we could explode the Perl into a bunch of different sort of like sub-elements and then use those for better filtering. One example that I can think of is you mentioned like, oh, you split out the version from the Perl so that you can do version ranges. Do you know if you will always run into the same versioning scheme, or do you have a version range sort of like a label where you say, oh, this is actually semantically versioned, or this is actually
we have
okay.
that.
Okay.
We're jumping back and forth, which is great, right? We can do those kind of things. Let me answer that if you want. We can go there. So, but before we go, so this keeping Perls in 3 tables and having database this granular is great for ingesting, because we can really, I mean, the whole point was to like let's ingest data as they are in the documents, right? So don't mess up, don't try to do any matching and things like that. Just store what the document says, right? Here's the SBOM saying this, advisory saying that. With the we know Perls, we don't know Perls, maybe we don't know just the package name, we know the exact version or the version range, we will store that. And then on the querying side, we will try to do our magic and do the thing. This is now a little bit challenging. It can be a time consuming and we're working on it. But I think it's the right approach, because like then the database will correctly reflect the source of the documents, and all this so to say incomplete logic that sometimes is implied, we can figure it out on the querying side, right? So these Perls in 3 tables are costly also, because you do a lot of joins, but it is what it is. But there's a couple of things. We try to use a lot of Postgres functions where we can. So for example, instead of me now going to join these 3 tables, qualified version and base Perl, you can call the get Perl with a qualified ID, and you will get that if you need it. So do we now jump to the version ranges and advisories, or go deeper into the pearls and and SBOMs?
I think I just had a quick comment. Santiago, did your answer?
Yeah, a little bit. I was just curious about sort of like the nitty gritty. I'm looking at the example that you have, for example, for that SBOM. My understanding is that that's a Red Hat version number of glib2, right? That includes like 161.el8. That at that point, that's not part of the upstream version number.
Yes.
So it would require a little bit more logic to match. I actually
exactly.
is that how supposedly Red Hat pearls are meant to be formatted, or I would be tempted to think
That's how the
EL8
RPM
was...
pearls are formatted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be tempted to think EL8 is actually more like a qualifier for like a release channel more than part of a version number, but I guess that's a...
I mean,
That's
this is what you're getting the SBOM, right? So
yeah, no, sure. I guess the broader point was we run into all of these little issues that sometimes tools may generate things a little bit differently, and sometimes their qualifiers are a little bit more stringent or not. And like a tool to like normalize and reason about this mismatch is also useful, right? But yeah, I'm just kind of like throwing that out there too.
So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we are going into the matching part of it, right? But I think before we wanted to get into that, I think I just wanted to comment that I think exactly kind of this tiered approach of like package name, package version, qualifiers. I think this is exactly the same way that we're representing in GUAC as well. Initially we went even further, right? We had like basically like one table for ecosystem, one table for namespace, one table for name, one table for version, and then that ended up making queries very expensive. Like you said, we ended up with kind of like compressing it to we denormalized it into one table. But I think it sounds like we're on the same page with kind of like the way that we're representing the data. I think that's similar. One question I had about the qualified poll, is that just like a content-based hash of the poll?
What do you mean?
No. So if you go to not call
so qualifiers are just the array.
Sorry, can you go to the SBOM post or
okay, yeah.
Yeah, qualified poll ID.
It's just UUID
UUID.
generated. Yeah, for
Is it
entry.
UUID? Okay, and then if I have multiple, is every qualified poll? So I may have multiple of the same qualified poll within the qualified poll table. Is that true?
It should upsert, right? It shouldn't.
It should upsert, yeah. So
But that means the qualified poll ID has to be content based, right?
and I'm not sure for qualified Perl ID, but for a lot of these, they basically are what they say, like a predictable UUIDs.
Yeah, I think that the issue we
It
have
doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be composable, because you can just upsert on all the other fields and not the ID.
But
right,
you get like a big hot, like we have this issue where like we have a huge hotspot problem once we have multiple people writing to the same poll.
True. Yeah.
But I think these are details that we can figure out later. But I just wanted to. I was just curious.
So I can prepare that for the next one. about how UUIDs work and
Okay.
because we did a lot of optimization on this, so we can basically batch ingest things into the database, and that depends on UUIDs being predictable, so that you can, like, you don't need to ingest row by row, but you can ingest all the base rows and then all the base, it really significantly improves the performance of ingesting things. But
it's the same thing we did, Brendan. Like, we ingest all the packages first, right? And then those are all predictable IDs or whatever, and then we ingest the SBOM, which requires everything else to be there. So it's kind of in an ordered ingestion, but it's a lot quicker because now you're no longer looking up the IDs. You already know what the IDs are to put foreign keys on them.
Right. I think my question here was around whether the polls are unique within the qualifier table. Qualified poll table.
Yes. So one, I think one qualified Perl will be the same, like a base Perl version, and the same set of qualifiers should be unique.
But you have a timestamp there as well, right? So wait, no. What's your primary key for that qualifier table, I guess? We can go through this next week. I think if you want to
No, it's okay. It's okay.
A timestamp would make it not unique, right?
Well, the
Or
primary
unique,
key
I
is
mean,
qualified package UID.
Why is the Perl in there here?
So I think this is like a side diff between our ontology where we treat like software identifiers as like ground truth in a sense. Yeah.
What do you mean?
So in the case, for example, let's say I wanted to figure out who's using this particular poll, right? And then let's say I had two SBOMs that ingested the same poll, then now I would have
relationship.
I think in this schema you would have two entries for the same poll, right? One of them belonging to the first SBOM, the other one belonging to the second SBOM. And then I think in our current
I will double check, but I think no, I'm sure that this is one of the base use cases. Like, here's the Perl,
okay.
find me all the SBOMs where this Perl is, right? So it should work, and I think we should have like a single instance of qualified Perl being contained in the multiple SBOMs.
Okay.
Because I think the timestamp throws it off, right?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like if I ingest all the SBOMs together, even if they're off by a second or millisecond, they're going to be different. So I guess that just makes sense.
Yeah, it could be the first one. I will double check and we can pick this up in details next week, or somebody else can come up and cover this. Yeah.
Cool.
So on the SBOM part as well. So folks, before we go
to the matchings. Yeah.
To the matchings. So there's also relationship things, and so because the SBOM packages table are just list of all the packages found, but you know that SBOMs have different relationships, right? And that's covered in the package. Yeah. Okay, that's all. Sorry. So it should give us one of the relationships between the different packages found in the SBOMs. which allows us to actually create a graph of things. So go the multiple levels, right? Deep in the SBOM, having different packages depending on different parents, depending on different parents coming to the root node, right? So that's supported by these two tables, right? And there's so Brandon, you said you met James at the FOSDEM, right? So he's done a lot of work on basically trying to get these things out of the database in a kind of like in-memory graph structure that can be much quicker queried. So basically, he can scan these tables, create in-memory graph when needed, and then we can traverse graph in memory as supposed. One also piece of the work that I'm not involved at the moment with, where people are spending a lot of time, is trying to support these relationships between the documents. So SBOM to SBOM, or SBOM to nodes in different.
Yeah.
So cross file relationships, basically. Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone use that feature yet.
That's a problem. Our project is planning to use it, so they are
Okay.
giving us a hard time. So they want to do this kind of thing, like this is the SBOM of the product, and this product contains these kind of different components, like a errata SBOM, basically, as a concept.
Okay.
Right?
Sorry,
If that makes sense.
I'll need to drop in just like a minute, but I had a quick question. These relationships are basically lifted from the SPDX like 2.3 spec, right? Or is there a way to like map this to like CycloneDX, or the CycloneDX have no
Both
qualifiers of those?
both are supported.
Both are supported.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, I didn't design this, so I can't give you, but maybe SPDX was took as a reference, but CycloneDX works with this schema as well.
Okay. Yeah. My sort of like and again, I don't think this is really a big thing. I would have imagined that there should be also like a unknown or no assertion sort of a relationship type, because a lot of the times this may not exist and you need to label it as unknown. But yeah, sorry, I need to drop. This is super interesting. I would like to read more on it, but I guess we can slowly go through these until it kind of like it fully fits in my head.
And I will definitely ask more people to join, so we can cover more topics in more details, because everybody's covering in detail, so we can answer more questions. So yeah, Santiago, let's organize something for next week to dive deeper into it, right? So
Okay.
relationships and things like that.
Have a good day, everybody.
Cheers. So you still want to go on? Yeah, versions and version matchings. So for starters, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think maybe let's keep the version matching for when Santiago is around. I think we can talk a little bit about the interface, I guess, like the path of it.
The API.
Yeah. So quick question on like, because you're storing all the relationships, right? Or like you're basically storing the entire SBOM. Is that efficient? Like, is all that information required for some of the use cases? Like, is it a use case that's Red Hat specific, or is that like, hey, that's a question that's probably going to be asked by a lot of community? Because I feel like if we're storing, it's going to make the database very heavy, like the queries very heavy, all that kind of stuff, right?
But what do you mean? I mean, isn't it the same in GUAC as well, that we are storing?
Yeah, I think it's the same in the sense that we call it dependencies, right? It's dependencies.
Mhm.
Except having like a dependency with a free relationship. right?
More.
Yeah.
And it's
My
big. That's another issue. Yeah. So we were thinking. Again, guys, they're more on the database side. You know, currently we are trying to see. How far can we go with a simple thing with a just trying this kind of schema work and making query and database vertically scaling and performant. But there's a lot of then other tricks that can be done to do these further improve things, like create a specialized views for more like cache data or things like that. So basically to optimize this schema to better match certain use cases by creating a different views that will be used for specific queries. But we're not that yet. We're not there today. Yeah.
I think the way that I see this is like it's very similar to its dependencies, except that in GUAC we kind of within the parser we do the transitive analysis and say like, oh, this particular dependency is on this Perl. In this case, you are storing kind of like the quasi node still, like
Exactly. I think that's the only difference is that
yeah.
Each dependency is a generic node, and then the identifiers are different nodes. Like this Perl, this CP, this hash identifies this SBOM dependency, right?
Which I don't hate, right? Because sometimes I think we don't fully understand the structure that's being provided to us in the SBOM as well. Do you have an equivalent CPE table for that's similar to the Pulse?
Yeah. So here's the CP table. So the table itself, it represents the CP schema, right? So the product.
So how does a node point to the
It's the
CPE?
same thing. So we have what's called SBOM package Perl ref, right? That's the Perls referencing the node, right? And it's the same thing with the SBOM package CP ref, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Let me see what we have there. Yeah. So this SPDX node is basically this Perl, right? That
Yeah.
in Red Hat world, these CP nodes are usually the root nodes, describing the application or the whole product, but it doesn't have to be the case, right? And we don't have anything else at the moment, but again, we could have like a table for different hashes referencing nodes if that's the use case at any point.
I mean, I like. So this is kind of like So these two tables are kind of like the is operand table, right? In a sense, if you treat the node as a I mean, I kind of like it.
It can be one table, as you said, right? With is that what you're saying?
I mean, this gives you the flexibility, right? So if you have the SBOM and node ID, right, it gives you the flexibility of doing anything, right? If I want to create a relationship for anything, I can create a relationship with these two parameters, and then different, if it's whether it's CPE or whether it's license or whatever else, I can just create another similar table like this. Just have a license ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the original idea. Yeah.
So you can expand it out to whatever other metadata you want to collect. Just add tables
Yeah.
and just
Yes.
create
So
relationships.
as I said, like we don't have too much different entities at the moment, so attestations or anything. But I assume, yeah, we wouldn't attach it to the Perl. It would be attached to a node, right? All the signature or whatever other metadata we would like to add. Maybe I'm talking wrong because let's see. So
I guess, do we have trouble? I feel like we have trouble querying the is occurrence, right? That makes things messy, right? So I think we did suggest something more, a little bit more generic than this, like kind of like a shit. I had a doc. We had a doc on it somewhere, I think, last time.
are we waiting for?
Where do you keep the top level reference for the SBOM?
Let me find. I again, I was too. I think it's in this. It's just a different relationship, right? If you.
Okay. But if I want to say,
So you would find described by, right? So this SBOM is described by this node, right? And then this node has this CP or this Perl. I can find those queries. I don't like them. What I found is when I like dealing with vulnerabilities and things like that, that I need to do a couple more joins more than I would like to get that information, which is everywhere. So this is for me like a first candidate to do a kind of like a view to say to get this information grouped in a single place. But as I said, like this is all work in progress, right?
I think for us we did exactly that, right? I think we pulled out certain bits of information that will be useful. So like what the top level node that's being described, as well as the list of identifiers that are all being described.
Yeah, as part of one table, so that it's to avoid this whole joins and all that kind of stuff, because it was getting too it was getting too complicated and expensive.
Exactly. But I mean, you know, this is not set in stone, right?
I think that's a good thing, right? I think there are some ideas that we are saying that we like. We like at least personally I like a lot. So it's like if we can combine the best of both worlds, then we get the
exactly. I think that's the whole point, right? The more eyes the people try to solve the same problem in different contexts. So we have a lot of experience of like what works in some cases and what not. that we can come up with a thing like that we can call, GUAC 2.0 schema, right? That we can work on.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Let's continue next week, and I also want to kind of see what we're pacing at, right? Because I feel like I like the conversation, and if it makes sense for us to kind of maybe split onto some breakout groups to continue certain topics a bit further, rather than having to wait every week.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'll try to get a couple more colleagues next time, and maybe just send me in Slack if you have more ideas where we can dive into next, and maybe get that next meeting as like a starting of some breakout discussions of different topics. So pearls, sales bombs, and then vulnerabilities and version matches and things like that. So that we can like. We are so busy trying to deliver stuff that we don't have too much good documentation, but I mean, we can work on that, right? Trying to figure out like, okay, this is how this thing basically works, right? Thanks for listening. I hope it wasn't too confusing.
This is great. Yeah, I agree with Brendan. We should have breakouts so we can go quicker if we need to.
Cool.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
See you guys next week. Bye.